The trade deadline is fast approaching, and on Tuesday evening, some of the biggest names in baseball could be improving their World Series chances or their playoff hopes. Will the Yankees make a move to improve multiple positions across their lineup? The Orioles and the Dodgers are rumoured to be looking at improving their pitching rotations, and will any clubs be surprisingly actively selling some of their stars? So let's not waste any time here, and let's talk baseball. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome to Let's Talk Baseball. I'm your host, Thomas Girls, and of course, on July 30th at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, the trade deadline for Major League Baseball shuts. It closes. Who knows what will happen? Who knows where people will play? Who knows what moves will be made? Who knows by Wednesday morning who will be the bookmakers' favourites to be the World Series favourites? At the moment, you still have teams like the Orioles, the Dodgers, the Phillies, and the Yankees up and around there. Surprisingly for some of them, I'm looking in your direction, New York, where the whole idea of still being World Series favourites is somewhat laughable to some of these fans, some of these people. And that's something we might get into later on in the episode. But for the time being, there's only one place to start, and that is with the trade rumours. And late last night / early this morning, we heard of the Seattle Mariners making a trade for Randy Arozarena from the Tampa Bay Rays in exchange for two prospects and a player to be named at a later date. What I find surprising about this move is Randy Arozarena is one of the better hitters in the American League. But what I also find surprising is the fact that they're trading him to someone that is half a game ahead of them in the wildcard standings. And it just makes me look at it and think, okay, that's always weird. It's always weird, and I always have this weird feeling. I don't know whether it's just me or what have you, but there are some teams in sports where if they're making a move or if they're trading away a guy or, something along those lines, or even if it's bringing somebody in that has been written off previously, the alarm bell should be ringing. And in the sense, what I mean by that is if the Tampa Bay Rays are actively trading away Randy Arozarena, a guy who has been, statistically this is probably his worst season, but to put it into context, his worst season so far would put him as one of, if not the best hitter on the Mariners this season. He's still a fantastic player, but my alarm bell is if the Rays are actively and happily trading him away for such a small return, or what I would consider a small return, why is that? Why is there not more interest from other teams? With all due respect to the Seattle Mariners, why are some of the contending teams not looking at Arozarena kind of going, you know what, for two prospects and a guy to be named later, we can make that work. We can do that without a problem. And I just think, especially when you consider he's arbitration eligible for the next 2 seasons, and he won't become a free agent until 2027. That feels like it's a really lucrative deal for some teams that are out there. Maybe, we don't know what happened and we don't know how it works, but maybe there's a world where the Rays were like fielding these offers, getting offers in from so many other guys, and then just, maybe looking at it and thinking, we can get more from this. And maybe the offers they were fielding and maybe the offers they were getting were, for the guys they were getting, maybe weren't good enough. Maybe they were going for some of the other teams and kind of asking for too much. It's weird. It's good for the Mariners. I think it's really good for them, and it should improve them massively. They've been struggling offensively for the season, but someone like Arozarena, who is I think, incredibly talented, is going to improve them massively. And, you know, the Rays are the Rays. They'll continue to. These guys they probably acquired in this trade are probably going to be absolute studs in the next couple of years before they then eventually trade them away, because that's what they do. They don't pay big. And I think that's a shame from a Rays fan's perspective. That being said, by this point, you kind of know what to expect. You kind of know what is coming your way when with this organisation and when these things happen. Every good player you've had is traded away at some point in time. But moving on from deals that have happened, we're going to take a look into some of the deals that are rumoured to be happening in the next couple of days. The Chicago White Sox have a ton of players on their team that are attracting interest from a lot of players around the league. One of them being Garrett Crotchet, who has said that if he is to be traded, he wants an extension. And there seems to be a lot of noise around people wanting to sign him. And the Dodgers seem to be in pole position for that one. There's a lot of noise surrounding that. And, you know, that's a team that needs the help. That's a team that needs reinforcements in the pitching department because they're decimated with injuries. You know, Kershaw came back, brilliant. Love to see players like him make a return, a healthy return. Yamamoto's been injured. Paxton has been let go. And someone like Crotchet would improve them now, but also in the postseason, which I think is ultimately what these guys are after at this point in the season anyway. It casts my mind back to when Brian Cashman, the Yankees general manager a couple of years ago, traded away Jordan Montgomery because he didn't believe he was suitable to pitch in the playoffs. That was a decision that ultimately has backfired on him. That being said, the idea of some of these deadlines, when you're in the position of, you know, the Dodgers and the Phillies and some of the other teams dotting around the league, I'm hesitant to say the Orioles and the Yankees because they're so inconsistent, you just never know what's going to happen. It's really weird, their situation. We might discuss that later on. But a lot of these teams will be looking at who can improve us now, but who also do we back to perform when we need them in the postseason. And I think the Dodgers will be looking at players like Crotchet. They'll be looking at players like Luis Robert. And Tommy Pham has been a name that has been linked around recently because he's like that stereotypical good clubhouse kind of guy. But Luis Robert Jr. has been linked with the Phillies and the Dodgers. And let's be honest, the White Sox, let me double check the record, actually, because their record is horrendous. It's embarrassingly bad, but we knew this was going to happen. We said it many times for that season, many times at the start of the season, that this was going to be a tough season for them. They are 27 and 78, 35 games off of Cleveland, top of the AL Central. And they are very much in sell now mode. They're sell forever mode. I mean, they are significantly worse than the Oakland A's, who are doing everything they actively can to annoy their fan base with every move they make. But the players they've got, I think Andrew Vaughn has been mentioned. There's someone that could go. Paul DeJong has been someone that's been mentioned that could go. What I find funny about this is the White Sox are so bad, but half of their team are like wanted by other teams in the league, and it's like, okay, well, why? I don't know. It's just, I always find it quite sad to see some of these teams who are clearly terrible, mainly from a fan's point of view, and you just know they're going to be gutted, completely gutted, and any hope you had of like, oh, this player might be good, this player might be good, no, 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 absolutely not. Oh, what I think is interesting with these teams is you look at the teams that are linked with some of these players, and another one that is mentioned, another outfielder that has been mentioned, is Jazz Chisholm Jr. Chizzy has been reported that several teams are interested in having Jazz return to his previous position of second base, with the Mariners and Yankees being among the favourites to land him. Now, there was a report, let me find it, because I don't necessarily believe it, to be perfectly honest, where there was questions that the Yankees don't want Jazz in the team because they believe his attitude will be detrimental to their clubhouse. And it's like, yeah, I'm not buying that for 1 second. I'm not buying that for 1 second because for all the faults that the Yankees have, all the faults that are in that lineup, one thing that can never ever be kind of labelled at them recently has been necessarily loads of dressing room disharmony. And I think the way people talk about Jazz is a bit weird. And it happens with a lot of other athletes where they're like, oh, they need to focus on their game more than their brand. It's like, these guys are top athletes. These guys are the best of the best. That people around the world would play this game. Not necessarily just this sport, but sport around the world. A lot of people would play this sport and don't have the focus that these guys have. And you hear it all the time of, well, you know, when I was growing up, there was this guy who was amazing, but he didn't make it. It's like, why didn't they make it? Because they didn't have the drive and the focus. A lot of the time, not all the time, but a lot of the time that is the case. And then you look at someone like Jazz Chisholm Jr., and obviously he's very good. He's obviously very talented. And yes, he might be a bit charismatic and he might be outspoken in a way that some people don't like. That being said, that kind of guy is ideal for this sport. And you read about how other players used to be. You read about, just an example off the top of my head, I'm currently reading the book Charlie Hustle about Pete Rose, his life, his career, and all of that. And you listen to how he was speaking in the media and how he spoke about other players, and he was a scumbag on and off the field. But because he put in the effort, he was Charlie Hustle and all of this kind of nonsense, it was kind of like celebrated. And then you fast forward years and years to now, and you see none of that kind of thing spoken about now. None of that kind of harsh, this guy's not good enough to play against me. Everyone's kind of respectful, and that's fine. That's not a bad thing. But to act as if these people now suddenly don't care about their brand, or don't only care about their brand and don't care about the game, is one, not true, two, disingenuous, and three, a bit iffy when you consider who they are talking about. Like, I think he's a great player. And I think, to be fair, the only thing I think would be annoying out of Jazz going to the Yankees is there's a high chance that you take the fun out of him. The way he is, the way he, expresses himself is probably the kind of thing that would be taken out of him. And he probably wouldn't enjoy it. And it's just like, I don't know. I just think the way people speak about Jazz is a bit strange. How you can look at him and think, oh, well, he's going to be a clubhouse issue. One, you don't know that. Two, you aren't in the clubhouse. Three, there's a high chance you don't know the guy, have never interacted with the guy. It's like, I've never met him. I can only base my opinion on what I see broadcast on television during games and in interviews he gives. And my overall impression of the guy is he's a very confident individual who isn't afraid to speak his mind. And he's been saddled on a team that has been trash for quite some time. They then have a good year last year and then tear it all down, and he's probably going to get traded alongside Tanner Scott. And yeah, I can understand why he'd be, looking to go, looking to leave, because if you back yourself, you're going to want to play for the best. And, by all means, the Yankees are not the best at the moment, but it's certainly a step up from the situation he's been in before. There's been rumours about people like Vlad Guerrero Jr. going and Bo Bichette going, and ultimately I don't think the Blue Jays will let that happen. I think the Blue Jays have a lot of other people who they would rather deal than them two, because if you get rid of them two, ultimately the cornerstones for whatever positivity you have at that club at the moment is gone, and you are stepping back into another rebuild, which then would raise question marks about this current rebuild and what happened there. And there's a piece on MLB.com from 3 days ago titled 5 Reasons Now is the Right Time to Trade Vlad Guerrero Jr. The season has not turned out well for the Blue Jays. Remember, this is from 3 days ago, so the stats and specific numbers are not accurate, or highly likely not to be accurate. They're 9 games under 500. They're in last place in the AL East, 15 games out of first. They're 10 games out of the AL wildcard spot. This is a team that made the playoffs last year and the year before with 3 straight seasons of 89 plus wins, and now they're facing roughly 1% odds of reaching the postseason per Fangraphs. This Blue Jays team has so much promise and fan support, but knowing when it's time to move on is a valuable skill, which is why it has been surprising that the Blue Jays have been so hesitant to do one thing that would close the door on this era and create a bridge to the next one. Trade 4-time All-Star first baseman Vlad Guerrero Jr. Sources told MLB.com earlier this month that the Blue Jays won't be looking to trade anyone who is under contract beyond this year, ostensibly because they plan on contending in 2025 and probably extending. That eliminates Vlad Guerrero Jr., who is due to hit free agency after next season. But this is the sort of mistake that the Blue Jays can't afford to make. They may have this real opportunity, to stock the next contending Jays team by trading Vlad Jr. while he has maximum value, rather than standing pat in an attempt to contend. And then they list 5 reasons why. Number 1, the Blue Jays in 2025 may not contend either. You can say that about a hell of a lot of teams as well. The reason given is they're only trading guys who aren't under contract beyond this season, and there's so many of them on expiring deals, including Justin Turner, Yimi Garcia, Yusei Kikuchi, Danny Jansen, and Trevor Richards. There are some valuable players there, but that speaks to the larger point. Toronto will likely be losing most or all those players next year. The Blue Jays are a last place team with them. Without them, it's hard to see the club improving. Number 2, the AL East is on the way up. We'll see about the Rays, who are only a little state of limbo right now, but they always seem to figure something out, which is very Rays of them. The rest of the AL East, however, looks like it's going to be stocked with powerhouses for a while. The Orioles are great right now, and they have a whole AAA Norfolk roster loaded with future Camden Yards regulars. They sure look like they're going to be aggressive both at this trade line and in the off-season. The Yankees certainly aren't going anywhere and may end up giving Juan Soto all of the money. And it doesn't mention it necessarily here. And this is the perilous part for the Jays. The Red Sox sure look like they've turned a corner with a load of exciting players in their 20s, led by Rafi Devers, Connor Wong, Ceddanne Rafaela, and All-Star Game MVP Yaron Duran. Wait until they start really spending money. It seems like the Red Sox have passed the Blue Jays, not just in the short term, but the long term as well. There was a time where the Sox, Yankees, Orioles were all down there. That time has passed, the Jays didn't take advantage, and there is no longer an advantage to be had. Number 3, a Vlad Jr. extension would have happened by now. I mean, these are all hypothetical so far, because anything can happen in this damn sport. And yes, sometimes an extension takes a while to happen. Number 4, there could be a hot market. Yes, there could be. There could be. And Yeah, Vlad Guerrero Jr. is probably going to be the premier first baseman for a while. And this particular piece says there are 3 teams that desperately want to win right now with a primary need for a Guerrero-type player. The Mariners, who placed Ty France on outright waivers. The Yankees, with Anthony Rizzo injured and Ben Rice coming in and doing okay. And then they use the Twins, who have solid veteran Carlos Santana at first base, but could very much use another big bat. I don't see the Mariners going all in for Vlad. I don't see the Twins doing it either. I certainly don't see the Yankees. I think the Yankees would do it, but I don't see the Blue Jays doing it. And I certainly don't see Vlad staying there past his extension. And number 5 is, this is the best chance to build the next great Jays team. They built a good Jays team and nothing came from it. So I can understand why Jays fans will be looking at this situation going, hang on a minute, this happened before and we got nothing out of it. So what do you want us to do? Do you want us to rebuild it again? Do you want us to stick faith with you again? I don't know, I think it's one of those times where you just have to throw your hands up and go, if I was running the Jays, I wouldn't trade him, because you have to make sure people like that stay. It's like another piece on MLB.com is labelled finding the best trade match for every contending club's deadline. The Orioles have got starting pitching. Tarek Skubal has been mentioned, the Tigers pitcher, who is incredible. I don't see him going anywhere, to be honest, because the Tigers are in that weird position, and we've mentioned it previously. The Tigers are in that weird position of not quite contending, not quite out of it. So, who knows? Who knows what happens with that one? The Yankees have been put on relief pitching, which is one of the things they need to be looking at. Tanner Scott has been labelled there. I think, you look at the Astros have been put. The Mariners have been put at first base, which fits into the whole, would they go for Vlad trade? I don't think so. I think they might be going for someone else, kind of like, Yandy Diaz maybe. I think he'd be the guy that would fit better. And, Lane Thomas of Washington has been listed as the Phillies' potential guy to look out for. And what I would say with a lot of these teams is there are only really a handful of teams and a handful of players that kind of you look at and go, yep, that guy is your guy. You look at Jazz, you look at Tanner Scott for the Yankees, and you go, yep, they are your guys. They can improve you going forward. You can look at the Dodgers and go, yep, starting pitching, that's yours. That's definitely yours. You can look at players like Brent Rooker from the Oakland A's, Yandy Diaz from the Rays, and just go, yep, you're going to be on the move. 100% you're going to be on the move. Even someone like, we looked at the Tigers ever so briefly and kind of just went, I don't think they're good enough to be contending, but they're also not bad enough to be selling, so I think they're in that weird position. And if anybody's going to go, it'll be Jack Flaherty as opposed to Tarek Skubal, because you can get more for Skubal going down the line, more production from him as well. So you never know what's going to happen in that regard. I just think the thing with trade deadlines is you can kind of predict what's going to happen a lot of the times, but then every now and again there'll be a move that comes out of nowhere and it makes you go, whoa, okay. And it's like there's a lot of Yankees fans at the moment, again, speaking from what I see, that are kind of going, do what you need to do to get this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy. And the reality is it's just not going to happen. Like, I've seen people kind of going, oh, well, if the Orioles can get Skubal, why can't the Yankees get Skubal? Because the Orioles have more to deal with, quite frankly. And the Yankees aren't going to get rid of Spencer Jones or Jason Dominguez. They're certainly not going to get rid of both. Even though Skubal would improve the team massively, they're not going to do that. It's just simple that they're not going to do that. it just makes common sense. I don't think, for example, the Orioles could easily trade Jackson Holiday as part of a deal. I don't think they will, but they could easily do that. I just think, look at some of the positions that these teams are in, and what's going to happen. These deals are going to be made one way or another. I'd say, but there's no superstar on the way out coming out of any team. I don't think. So when it comes to the deadline, I always look forward to it. I always think it's massively fun. I remember the 2017 deadline was fantastic, with Verlander on the move and Sonny Gray ended up going on the move. I was sitting in Nando's when that was going down. It was fantastic to see. But if you watch this video, comment who you think is going to be moved, everything like that. Who you want your team to move or to bring in as well. That'd be interesting to see where the fan consensus is regarding that. One final note. If you watched the last episode from a couple of weeks ago, I was ragging on the Yankees before the All-Star break. I can still rag on them now. I did 28 minutes just going in on them, and I couldn't help myself. Same thing applies here. They're just not a good team. There's been questions about if the Mets are better than them. I don't think the Mets are better than them, but the vibes right now are better. Alex Verdugo has become a shadow of the player he was in the first half of the season. The pitching has collapsed. The relief pitching has gotten worse somehow. And outside of Soto and Judge, there's no fun in the team. There's no ability to make you go, wow, this could be a thing. There was times earlier in the season where Verdugo would come up and you'd be like, okay, I can see something happening here. There was times when, Giancarlo Stanton has been out injured and he's completely... No one would have guessed this at the start of the season. Giancarlo Stanton's injury has completely derailed that lineup. No one could have seen that coming. Madness that that's the case. But it is the case. It's a poorly constructed roster. Poor vibes at the moment. Not clubhouse tension, but just watching the games and you hear what people are like and it's like, there's no faith in the team. There's no faith in the organisation. Aaron Boone is a sitting duck to the point where I think most fans, whilst they acknowledge he's going to go and should go, feel somewhat sorry for him. Playing Jahmai Jones and J.D. Davis against the Mets isn't going to garner you any sympathy, Boone, but the roster you have been given will. And I think the fans now are just going to go and just get to the off-season, get to the postseason and take it from there. And then you go again in the summer, in the winter rather, because it's a massive off-season for the Yankees, this one. Massive. If they don't sign Soto to an extension, I think there's going to be a lot of angry fans. And we'll leave it on that for now before it gets too negative. Thank you for watching if you got this far. Remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel, comment on anything that you heard or any trade rumours that you've heard about that you want to see, and you want your team to sign, or players that you want your team to get rid of, really. So thank you for watching. Hope you've enjoyed the video. Have a good day.